I have a question for everyone, and let's think about this. If a director's hand were to appear gloved, would that still count as a cameo from the director? I mean, you're not seeing any of the skin or the face, but it makes you think. Dario Argento was famous for that, and he worked with Mario Bava's son Lamberto Bava in Tenebrae, which led to the stylization for A Blade in the Dark from 1984, in which a horror music composer uh, is staying is self-isolating for a little bit to compose a score for a horror movie, and lo and behold, there are some billings that are going on there. Um, what is it that's happening? Like, who is composing it? Who knows? There's this one person named Tony who owns the place saying, okay, you can stay over here, X person, and you can go ahead and create all the music that you want, but lo and behold, these women drop by, and he spends some time with them, and as he's getting to know them, a couple of them drop, and I'm like, okay, very interesting. The isolation. It's like, okay, this movie's pretty good. It continues the yeah, this is definitely, it felt like Lamberto was coming into his own, figuring the steps when he learned from the master, and just crafted his own unique tale enough to where he can have the meta narrative of horror movies, but also add his own twist that his father did, which bringing all the tropes and stuff into the 1980s. That is what I noticed with this movie. And of course, there's all the twists and turns that you would expect. But it's, in my opinion, it's done right enough to where you wouldn't feel bored. How long is this movie? Like an hour and 40 minutes or something like that, which is kind of long, but in a good way. So what is our hero like? Who is doing all the billing? It's like, well, as our hero is looking for composing the music, he hears some secrets saying like, Linda knows a secret or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, so Linda knows a secret. What's happening? Well, it turns out that she knows that there's this alter ego of the homeowner Tony, because he got ridiculed because he didn't feel like man, like he says his self was like too fragile to be a man, but too tough to be a woman. So it created this kind of, I guess you could say, treat a psycho, if you will, where he will don a wig and then just go ahead and start eliminating people, which I found to be an interesting way of how to do things. It's got like the shoes, the wig, the nails, and everything. And I'm just looking at it like, oh, dang, okay then. I did not see that coming, but it was there. So, it's the unraveling that it works here. And we get a couple of eliminations that happen like right here, and then a person gets it down in the stomach, in the intestines area, and there's a little bit of blood, which it works well. And I'm like, for me it worked, because I felt like just the isolation and everything worked well. I mean, this guy is trying to compose his own music score, so we get the meta narrative of when I'm saying what like a person will go through, like what Claudio Simonoli, Danny Elfman, or Ennio Corione, or whatever his name is, would go and just compose and everything. Sometimes you need to be isolated in order to create the right tune, if you will, and to thinking about like how we can get lost in fiction if we consume way too much, and we just start thinking about like saying like, hey, you're doing like saying, hey, you're losing grip on yourself, and you just become so obsessed you just start losing yourself. You've seen that trope plenty of times. That's one of them that's going on here. And of course, like what happens when you don't actually listen to a child, they become so self-absorbed and can't try and figure out their identity. They become a very different person. That's would be the best way how to describe it. Saying, yeah, that's like what's going on here. Obviously, with the when Lamberto was working on Tenebrae, it felt sterilized and like it was in the future, but sparsely populated. Let us glean some of the elements, everything with like how everything looks clean and sterile and everything, and put it inside this one house. So it's like we get the house that feels like it's in the middle of the woods, even though it's just actually in the middle of a city and only have to go down a 30-foot driveway. I'm just like, WTF. But at the same time, one could feel like, okay, I could see why he feels so isolated when he's just listening to the music. He doesn't even hear all the screams and everything, and it just adds to the elements of, the isolation and not listening to anything going on out there. So yeah, the house, it feels sterile. It feels like it's, you know, like you're truly isolated from everything. Lamberto does that very well, and there's even a scene downstairs where a woman gets stabbed, like through like what was that, fence or something like that, with like a, yeah, it was a like a box cutter, multi-segmented box cutter, like this. You've seen it before. Yeah, there's quite some interesting billings and everything going on. So, this was meant to be what was this, like 4 separate stories into one, and unfortunately, I said, yeah, this is too violent or something like that. I forgot the exact details, so ultimately, all the ideas were just kind of, I guess, haphazardly put together. This was haphazardly put together for it, just how you get what you have there, because you also have this neighbor who has a beard, and he's there. You're thinking that he's going to be the perpetrator because he does seem like a creep, but really he's not. He gets eliminated. He himself gets eliminated. So it's like, I don't know who. Like, it just keeps going on and on, but you can still follow it enough because the characters are there. Let's see, standout scenes are the chase with the first victim, going around when the biller gets them. There's the swimming scene. There's the scene of the swimming pool. Obviously, you have like the ex coming in, trying to talk to the. She said, you drove here an hour. I'm only gonna stay here for a little bit. I'm gonna go drive back out in this rain. Like, what was that? You could tell the hate between them. I'm just like, that's so stupid. Yeah. But with all the knives and everything, the music is great too. There's like this there's this synth score, which adds more to the way how this feels like it's in the future, or there's enough, I guess, variety, you could say, so where you don't feel bored, because the music at once is both the meta narrative of how it would be to add to, like, how you have all the actions going on outside, and normally you would have this you have the music playing on its own, but then he's providing the music from the inside, which then leads to all the eliminations going on outside, which I found to be a very, very nice touch. For me, I personally like this movie, but at the same time, if you're not really liking how everything is like a meta narrative about horror movies and everything, this is not for you. This is for the horror fans to know what's going on. But then again, you may like it too. This movie, when translated, from Italy literally means the darkness of the stairs, but I think A Blade in the Dark sounds a whole heck of a lot better. Lamberto said, yes, that sounds a lot cooler, so yeah. So with A Blade in the Dark, I say, watch it, but your mileage may vary.